Hi, my name is Haley Barberts, and today I will be sharing with you my entrepreneurial toolbox topic, which is organizational culture. Organizational culture is a creation of three different concepts: organizational learning, rites and ceremonials, and knowledge management. I am going to break down the three different concepts and describe how each are crucial to developing a company culture. But first, I would like to explain why company culture is so important. Organizational culture can be described as the vibe or perception that one receives from the company, which can be due to the values the company has, procedures, shareability, work ethic, and pretty much any adjective that can be thought of to describe the nature of a company. Organizational culture adds value to a company amongst all stakeholders, which are the board members, investors, executives, employees, and customers. Firstly, implementing a desired type of culture within the company begins with an initial idea from the CEO or board of directors that they would like for others to perceive of the company. After that, the perception is translated by particular steps that will lead to the desired outcome that is the company culture by training of employees. It is especially important for employees to buy into the company culture since they are working with other employees as well as customers. Therefore, the idea needs to be clearly communicated. The employees are then representatives of the company and demonstrate the culture to the customers, whether they are aware of it or not. The customers then develop their own opinion of the company, which can sometimes make or break a company depending on how effectively the company culture is communicated and if the culture is good or not. The focal point of the culture is within the employees, who are critical assets when developing company culture. The first step of learning about organizational culture is learning about organizational learning. So I'd like to start with a definition to be able to discuss this concept. The definition is organization-wide continuous process that enhances its collective ability to accept, make sense of, and respond to internal and external change. It requires systematic integration and collective interpretation of new knowledge that leads to collective action and involves risk-taking as experimentation. So, dissecting this definition will help us learn more about the role that organizational learning applies to company culture and how entrepreneurs can apply it. The first important key phrase is organization-wide. In order for something to be learned, it should be organizational-wide for managers and employees to understand the concept and be able to internalize it, and the same message should be communicated across the board. The next keywords are continuous process. Keeping a learning environment in the organization leads to better trained employees, who are then more educated, more valued, more invested, and hopefully more efficient and profitable. Learning within the organization helps employees become better aware of how to handle situations and can also help employees have a better understanding of company values and how to better implement them. For example, upon the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it was likely that many companies had to train employees to recognize the new laws in order to avoid potential lawsuits, especially in the South. This type of learning not only helps the organization evade issues, but whether the company knows it or not, it also took a step toward reducing workplace discrimination. If the employee put the company in a position for a lawsuit, the employee would probably lose their job. So, in an underlying effect, the organization told the employee that discrimination would not be tolerated. With the Civil Rights Act example, this law has had a continuous vetting process and is stricter than in years past, which is also an example of a continuous learning process. The next longer phase that says ability to accept, make sense of, and respond to internal and external change is exemplified with the civil rights example. However, what about in terms of adapting to merging to a new accounting software? Whenever change is encountered, how well is the organization adjusting? Does the organization provide training for the transition to the newest accounting software, or do all operations cease until someone figures it out? The way a company approaches the processes of learning is crucial to company culture. Another example includes a story that I read in undergrad, which was a hotel in which had systems for everything. There were manuals on exactly how to clean the rooms, including the direction to begin vacuuming and how to best put the sheets back on, to the particular way to folding towels. The processes were laid out and conducted the same way every single time, to where training was easy, and for a foreign person to step in and do the job correctly would be a gentle transition. When thinking about this company culture, this makes me perceive the company as extremely particular and likely seeks out people who can follow listed directions, but also seems restrictive on creativity. In terms of the systematic integration and collective interpretation of new knowledge that leads to collective action, systematic integration can be training, as mentioned previously, and collective interpretation involves discussion of the message that the organization is trying to translate to the employees or customers. But everyone needs to be on the same page and work toward a common goal that is communicated so that the change or rule or habit can be put into effect and create the desired change. When speaking of organizational culture, I'm going to tie rites and ceremonials into interchangeable concepts. As you start getting into like the deeper definitions of rites and ceremonials, one is religious, whereas the other one can have non-religious aspects to it. But for this purpose of organizational culture, I'm going to keep it secular and combine them into one group. When thinking of rites, someone can also be thinking of rituals. Now, rites and ceremonials are different from rituals. When someone's thinking of rites and rituals, one may be thinking of tribal rites and rituals, like how the alligator people are prodded with razors and scarred to look like an alligator in order to become an adult. The organization can also be thought of as a tribe and has similar rites and rituals. A common example of a rite is a promotion. A promotion within the company signifies that the employee is moving up on the food chain and is requiring more power. Another rite that is practiced is receiving an award signifying high performance, like Employee of the Month, which can also be a ceremony. These rites can give employees the individual recognition that makes them feel, maybe if only for a second, that they stand out among the crowd. Rituals are things that are repeatedly practiced, such as business meetings, collaborations, or quarterly evaluations. On the customer's viewpoint looking at a company, a common ritual that is recognized by customers when visiting Chick-fil-A is the "My Pleasure" line. Organizational rites that are practiced can help others see more special things that companies do, whereas rituals are more frequently practiced, but both can elicit a type of response that can influence how an individual perceives the company. For example, I work at a gym and we put on a competition once a year. The first year I was on the team, we put on the competition and were compensated for our efforts, in which everyone was excited and I couldn't figure out why. We had worked. The following year, we did not receive a check even though our performance was better, but nobody else seemed shocked. To me, it gave a poor perception of the workplace, whereas to those who had been there longer, receiving the check that one year was more of a right or a reward, and they probably thought better of the organization for that one check. From this right, both employees had completely different perceptions. I had a different idea about the company culture because of this experience than others had. To me, that demonstrates that what the company practices can influence the perception of a person, whether it's internal, so within the employees, or external, which is what the customer sees. So based on my Chick-fil-A example, that is what the customer sees and perceives of the company, whereas what I had experienced through coaching was also a perception of the company. I believe that the process of knowledge management is best explained by an example. So let's take it that I am running a computer software company. My first step of knowledge management is going to be to get the data. So let's say that I conduct a survey among a group of 100 people, and I find out that 73% of people do not use our computer software because it is too difficult. Among that survey, I also found out why the software is difficult to use. And from that, I'm going to interpret what needs to happen to get to the point where people or customers are using our computer software. So from the data that I retrieved, I am then going to put it into information. So I'm going to make a strategy that is easily communicated to the employees which direction we would like to go to get the desired results. After I develop that information, then I'm going to get the information to the employee. So the information is then going to become knowledge among the company. So how am I conducting that? Am I doing this through training? Am I changing procedures? Am I making better customer support helplines for the customers to use? How am I translating this to the employees? The last step is going to be applying the knowledge to situations. So what solution am I providing through the data that I've received, through the information that I translated to the employees, through all the training that's gone through the employees? How is this being applied to solve the initial problem that caused me to go and find the data of why customers are not using our computer software? The whole process of coming up with the data, communicating the information, spreading the knowledge and applying it to the situations is actual knowledge management. So you're taking knowledge through the chain and developing it along the way to solve problems. Now that we've gone over the process of knowledge management, I'm going to explain how to apply this to the workplace. So first of all, you have to start with a clear context. That can include listing out your organizational goals, operational goals, or project goals. What is the purpose for whatever you are trying to implement? Now that you have discovered your purpose, you also have to have an evolving framework. The workplace is always changing, and as new information is being acquired, there has to be a group that is putting this information together so that it is able to be communicated in order to be put into functional processes. An understanding of current processes is needed to figure out how the new information will be applied to get to the stated goal. After that is established, there needs to be active facilitators in place in order to oversee these new changes and implement them. There may be a particular group that is overseeing this, or maybe a particular manager who is responsible for ensuring this new change is applied correctly and has the particular knowledge and standards to know that operations are performing according to plan. The final step is actually putting the new change into effect and communicating it, which can be done through working practices, role modeling, success stories, training and support, and flat-out data that gives the employees proof that the new change is going to be successful and helps them buy into the common goal that is presented by the workplace change that is attempting to come into play. Knowledge management is important for company culture because it gives the employees understanding of what is going on in the workplace and what is expected of the employees. With poor knowledge management, the organization can become stagnant without having employee stimulation in the workplace, or employees can be confused themselves from incomplete information. Knowledge management, good or bad, can influence customers and directly affects employees. By the knowledge management system that is in place can say a lot about the company, and it is important that each step of the knowledge management system is executed properly to avoid being known for a negative culture. Going back to the first slide, we can now see how organizational learning, rights and ceremonials, and knowledge management all contribute to organizational culture. The workplace is ever-changing, which is why the organizational culture needs to be maintained. There are several people involved to maintain company culture, and it's important to be known for a good one. Not only is company culture especially important for employees as they are invested into the company with their time, it's especially important that the customers get a good perception of the company culture. As employees and customers frequently interact, the customers can pick up what type of company that you have through the processes that are being implemented throughout. A good company culture is going to lead to happy customers, and a poor company culture is going to lead to displeased customers or people who are no longer customers, which is why it's extremely important to hold a good name for the company and develop a good culture within.